Well, I figured out why my knees are so cold. Winter is officially here. Woodlands are totally covered in snow. We've had a couple more days of snow this week, and wow, I'm just trying to make the most of it, that's for sure. Notice anything new? Maybe a sick new hat. Wait for the best part right here, ready? Bam. Ball cap, dog ears, fleece inside, sun's out of my eyes, and I get to stay warm. Best of both worlds. So it's not that far away from sunset. It's probably about just less than an hour, but this woodland's pretty dense. So I don't think there's that much light in here, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem because the compositions I kind of have in my mind are maybe some backlit snow-covered branches or nice just repetition with like horizontal branches. So I'm gonna try my best to find something to take an image of. And if I can't find a nice image, then I'm just happy to be out here because this is a really, really cool forest. This forest I'm in is super unique because it's one of the oldest Acadian growth forests in this pretty small region, but it's really close to where I live. And I had no idea it was here, but it's unique because in this, let's just call it a valley, this is the last remaining like well-managed one. So it's really old growth trees, some unique species, and it's protected now as well. So public access, nice protected old forests, and it's just absolutely beautiful. I don't know if that came across on my audio, but as I was walking over there, a bird screeched, and a lot of people might think that noise is an eagle because, you know, in pop culture, that's the sound the eagle make, the waka noise, but it's not an eagle. Eagles actually have a really stupid noise. They sound like pigeons or seagulls, but it's some kind of hawk. I'm gonna pull out my phone, hope it makes a noise again, and I hope it came across, otherwise I'm gonna sound crazy, but there's a hawk in the tree somewhere here. As I was packing up my camera stuff today, I saw my snowshoes sort of just sitting in the corner, and I was like, I was out for a walk this morning. There's not that much snow. I don't need snowshoes. I think I would have benefited from snowshoes in here, especially because the only trails in the snow is at one set of snowshoes, which is actually coming in quite nice because I've never been here before, and trails are really hard to follow in the snow, and snowshoes have left a really nice path for me to follow. I have two ideas for photographs. The first one, super simple, and I never get images like this that I'm super, super happy with, but I love trying to do it, so I'm gonna try again tonight. And that is right over here. You can see some orange leaves coated in snow that haven't yet fallen off the trees, and at this point, they may never fall off the tree. But that just offers some nice contrast, and it's all about that transition of seasons, which I find interesting because it tells more of a story with an image. So I'm gonna try and capture an image of that. And then I've walked a little ways through this woodland, and I've come out sort of facing directly towards the setting sun. So I'm looking west now. And if you can tell, maybe not quite, but if I move over here, maybe, there's some more, oh, maybe not yet. Okay, well, it's not coming up well on that camera, but the sun's starting to just poke down, and there's light coming in through the trees now. So I think that if I stay here, oriented in this direction towards the sun, as it gets even lower in the horizon, might shoot some nice light through here and give me that nice backlighting and get that nice glittery, sparkly snow that I'm looking for. So I'm gonna pay attention to that, but I'm gonna first try and capture an image of those nice orange leaves. Well, I have my tripod with me, and I didn't want to take it out because it's just hard to manipulate in the cold, but I just took an image that I'm really happy with, and I want to make sure it's super sharp. So I'm actually going to get my tripod out now and I'll talk you through what I'm shooting here. So there's a lot going on in this image. We have snow-covered trees, we have snow-covered pine needles, and then snow-covered orangey leaves as well, orangey brown, like the crunchy autumn leaves. And that alone gives some nice contrast. And my initial thought for the composition was just to shoot some kind of close-up, low aperture, kind of blurry background, detailed leaf shot. But what I've actually done is I've backed up a little ways from these nice contrasting colors. And now on the left-hand side of my frame, I have these heavy laden pine needles with heavy snow, and then crunchy orange leaves covered in snow, sort of framing the image. Those are on the outsides. And then dead center of the frame, there's this interesting tree. It has really nice textured bark. It also has a slight curve in it, a little bit of an S, which just is nice to look at. And it's being framed up by these leaves. And because the frame is sort of like eye level and you can't see the top of the tree, it almost looks like these different leaves are the branches and leaves of this tree dead center, which they're not. But I think it's interesting. There's a couple little distractions, some branches on the ground, but I'm not going to manipulate the scene. I'm not going to go over and take them out, and I'm not going to edit them out in post. They're here, they're part of the scene, so I'm going to keep them in. I've done my best to remove the distractions I can, but that being said, and I put it on my tripod just because it's getting quite dark in here. So I have an 1/8 of a second shutter speed, f13 because I want everything sharp and in focus, and ISO 160. As I was taking that image, I was paying close attention to the light in front of me. As I was mentioning, I want to try and get some backlit trees, but it's not looking good. There was a little bit of warm light in here just for a split second, but it was not closer to me. It was kind of diluted, kind of a ways away, but I don't think it's going to happen anymore, unfortunately. I don't know if I don't know if the sun's gone behind some denser forest or something maybe just slightly higher up than I am, but yeah, there's no more warm light in here. I'm nervous there won't be any, but there's still enough light to take some more pictures, so I will try and find some more winter wonderland scenes. Beautiful snow. I've already got cold toes and hands, so I may as well stay out here till the sun goes totally dark. Based on the warm glow on the peak of that tree, I have a feeling we're in a little bit of a low spot. That would explain why there's not more light in here. A little disappointing, but I tend to come in without many expectations, so that when things inevitably go wrong, I'm not really upset. So I'm just happy to be out. I've gone bushwhacking and I found this interesting little puddle. I think I'm standing on top of a stream right now, but I thought it could be a nice, interesting foreground subject, sort of shooting towards the dense forest, but it's not quite working. I'll throw the image up on screen, but it's not quite enough. I think there's just no subject or enough interest in the scene, but oh well, I took an image anyway, so I'll share it. I absolutely love winter photography. I think there's just so many interesting things to photograph. But it's difficult for me for two reasons. One, it's cold. Everything is hard. Cameras are hard to manipulate in the cold. You have cold fingers. Tripods get really cold. But I mean, if you dress appropriately, the cold's not too bad. But another thing I struggle with, I know I just mentioned that I don't really have many expectations, which is true. I tend to be kind of just go with the flow and do the best with what I can. But one thing I struggle with a little bit is if you take someone who is never near snow and is a pretty good photographer, they would have an absolute field day in here. They'd be going nuts. They'd be taking pictures of everything. and they'd get some amazing images. But I find it a little difficult for myself because I'm so used to this, and it takes something really interesting to pique my interest and take an image. And I feel like a lot of the time, not that I waste opportunities when I'm out in the snow, but sometimes I feel like I do, which is not true. But no, it's just a mindset thing I have to get over. One thing that I never pass up the opportunity to photograph though is a beautiful, weird, crinkly, craggly old fallen tree covered in snow. So that is my next subject. Something I feel like I've been rambling on about quite a bit recently is wanting to get better at woodland images, which this obviously counts as that. And although my pictures still aren't amazing, I feel like they have improved, and I'm going to credit that just being a little bit more patient and actually taking the time, because there's so many things going on in a woodland image that you really want to think about what you want in the frame and why it's there. Everything, to the best of your ability, should have a purpose when it's there. Otherwise, it's kind of a distraction. So I'm really going to take my time and think about how I want to compose this really cool textured fallen tree. So I don't know what the final image is going to look like yet, but I'm going to play around here for a few minutes and see what I can come up with. So just breaking this scene down, there's one fallen tree in the foreground, which isn't going to be the main subject, but it's definitely going to be in the frame. And I want to position it so that it's kind of cutting through diagonally. So sort of where I'm at now is a pretty good start for that. And then the next thing I want in the frame is not necessarily where the tree broke, because I think that's a little too messy and it's just kind of like hanging in the air. But I want the really textured, squiggly branches covered in snow. I think that's the main part of this fallen tree that I want focused on in this image. So I'm just moving around now, trying different focal lengths and trying to frame up the most important parts. There's a lot of things in this image, so I think it could easily get overwhelming. So I'm trying to be really careful, just like micro adjustments on my camera. I say that as I move my whole camera, but do as I say, not as I do, because I don't know what I'm doing half the time. The first image I took has sort of that fallen tree in the foreground that I mentioned, but it's interesting. It adds an element and a bit of a line to the scene, but I think it also adds too much distraction. So I have since recomposed my image, and you can still see some of the branches of that fallen tree kind of in the foreground. And there's a couple browny gray leaves as well, so kind of interesting. But now the fallen tree, that's my main subject, is coming in from the top left of the frame, covering the majority of it, with nice whites and contrasting colors. And then on the right-hand side of the frame, there's some orange leaves poking through in the background. And it's also kind of framed up nicely by two dark, pretty straight, tall trees as well. It's not an award-winning image by any means, but I think it's quite nice. I mean, there is a clear subject to me, and although it's quite distracting, I don't think that there's one thing that's like overpowering the image, and I still feel like you're bouncing around in the frame and not sort of hyper-fixating on something super distracting in the image. So I'm shooting at a 15th of a second, f10, ISO 160, and I'd like to hear your thoughts if you think this is a worthwhile image, or if you would have just walked right past and not even given it a second look. I was just thinking that, like right this second, live Tim thoughts, that I want to set a goal for myself, because over the last 4 or 5 months, well, no, that's an exaggeration. Over the last 3 months, I've gotten some really, really nice images that I'm incredibly pleased with. But none of them scream autumn or fall, which is a little disappointing because we had a beautiful fall here. Lots of really, really nice colors. And I was out all the time, like at least once or twice a week, taking images, but I don't think I got any images that just like scream fall to me. Nice images, but they're kind of just missing something. So this winter, I'm gonna make it a goal for myself to capture at least one scene that I think is a spectacular keeper, but also that really showcases winter and sort of my lived experiences, which might be easier than autumn because, I mean, it's hard to take a picture in here that doesn't scream winter. It's very pretty in here. But I digress. I think I have my work cut out for me, but I'm looking forward to putting in the effort and hopefully it pays off. I have no idea if this is gonna work, and I can't even see my camera screen, but there is possibly one final image. All right, clearly I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to try this again. I want to try and capture this one last image. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it justice, but it's quite interesting. There are some frozen leaves in this little trickling stream or brook that have frozen over, but they're not necessarily submerged under the ice, so they still have nice textures in them. And I've got my camera down quite low. I'm just going to try and pick out a leaf or two that looks interesting, and hopefully get an image I'm happy with. Time will tell. So there's a couple things in this scene that I really like and a couple that I really dislike. One thing that I really don't like is there's a couple really dark patches where it's basically just a thin little layer of ice over top of mud. And they overpower the frame and are really distracting. So I've put my camera in a 1x1 crop. It's non-destructive, but it just kind of gives me an idea of what the frame might look like if I crop it like this. And I think it looks quite nice. And I have some nice, clean, textured, nice patterns and some leaves in the bottom left-hand corner of the frame. And then through the middle, there's like a little sprinkling, dusting of snow that must have just fallen off the canopy in the trees here. And I think this is quite interesting. I'm not very good, or I don't tend to have much success with these kind of images. But I think this one might work out really well. And I hope so, because it looks really nice on the back of my camera. I know it doesn't look like it. You can never trust these cameras, but it's getting quite dark. And I don't know this trail and I don't want to get lost. So I'm gonna scurry back to the car, warm up my right hand because I haven't been wearing a glove because I'm silly. Hopefully you enjoyed a couple images from this outing. Nothing special, but I'm still practicing. I'm learning something every day, so I've enjoyed myself. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Let me know which image was your favorite, and I hope I see you on the next one. Till next time.